Okay, we are going to do a quick review of matrices. So we'll start off pretty simple, just basic operations, add and subtract. I define matrix A and matrix B up above. I'd like you to add A plus B, get an answer. How much work you show, it's completely up to you. I understand you can do some of these in your head. And then try number 2, do 2A minus 3B. Pause the video and I'll do number 1 after you unpause. Okay, so I showed way more work than I probably would have. I wrote them down. And then I just added corresponding terms. So if it's in top left corner, it gets added to top left corner, etc. all the way through. There's my answer. Try number 2 and then pause the video and see if you get what I get. Okay, so for this one, I did a little more work that I would actually do. I doubled A, so this is 2 times A here already. And then I distributed -3 to B. That's why it says plus now. And everything over here was multiplied by -3. And then I added them together and you can see the answer. Okay, moving on to multiplying. First thing you want to do when it asks you to multiply is to not waste your time, because not every matrix can be multiplied by every other matrix. So, dimensions. This is a 2 by 2. This is a 2 by 3. The inside numbers are the same. So the outside numbers tell me what the dimensions of my new answer is going to be. It's going to be a 2 by 3 when I'm done. So it is possible. That's the first thing I want to check and see. Okay, and then I like to set up a really big place to do my work. It's 2 by 3. So 2 rows, 3 columns. Remember, these are hard to do in a video, but I'll draw 1 arrow, but then I'm not going to draw those arrows because it just makes a mess. I am going to go across from left to right on the top row for the first matrix, and I'm going to go down the first column on the second matrix, and that will give me first row, first column of my new matrix. Why don't you go ahead and do as many of these as you can and then come back and check with my answers. I did want to show this before I went too far. 2 times 0, and then you move to the right and move down at the same time. 3 times -1, and then it's always plus in the middle. I wanted to remind you it's always plus in the middle. Now go ahead and pause the video and see how many you can do. Okay, continuing that pattern the whole way through. My matrix answer is at the top, and all my work is at the bottom. I cannot do these in my head. Just a teacher recommendation to you, do not try to do these in your head. Just set it up, get the scratch paper out, use the space necessary to get the correct answer. Also, look at all that math in there. Highly possible I made a tiny mistake. So if you got something different than me and you double check the math that's written on the paper, then I believe you. Super careful when you take the test. Don't make a tiny, tiny math mistake. See if you can do number 2. So looking at number 2, the first one, 2 rows, 1 column, times 1 row, 3 columns. The inner numbers do match. My answer is going to be a 2 by 3 matrix. You might need a little more space than I gave myself down here. See if you can pause this one and do it all by yourself. Since it is by 1 in the middle, you won't be doing any addition along the way, so maybe you can do this one in your head, but it's the same process. So what did I say? 2 by 3. So if I do that same orange line I did before, every time I go to the right on this one, it's just 1 number. And then every time I go down on this one, it's just 1 number. So it's really just those multiplied together. So you could pause it if you want, or I'll just walk through this one right now. 2 times 3 is 6. When I go to the next one, 2 times 0 is 0. 2 times 7 is 14. When I go to the bottom row, now I'm going to use the 6. 6 times 3 is 18. 6 times 0, 6 times 7. I wouldn't keep all those lines in there, but there's the answer. Okay, try the next one. A few more terms, so a few more rows or columns in your final answer. See how far you can get on this one. Pause your video. Okay, at least check that you got the dimensions correct. 3 by 3 times a 3 by 2 will result in a 3 by 2 answer. So 3 rows, 2 columns. I'll start off the first one for you. Going across and going down will give me this spot. Multiply. move to the right, move down, add, multiply, move to the right, move down, addition sign, multiply. Let me do another random spot just so we all understand where these are coming from. What if I do second row, last column? So I'm going to work on this spot. I wouldn't normally just jump around like this, but I want you to understand that you should be able to figure out where that comes from. It comes from second row of the first matrix, second column of the second matrix. So -1 times 2 plus, move to the right, move down. 3 times 6 plus, move to the right, move down. 1 times 4. See if you can fill in the rest and get the final matrix answer. Pause your video. Okay, check your answer with my answer. Lots of tiny places to make a mistake again. Be super careful. See if you can do the last one if you're good with that. Last one. 2 by 2 times a 1 by 3. Insides do not match. Answer does not exist. If I tried to work on this to the right and down, these numbers would be multiplied together, but there's nothing below the 4 to multiply the 6 by. I can't move to the right and go down at the same time, so there is no solution. Okay, solving systems using matrices. Clearly you can use any system you want to solve, or any method you want to solve matrices, but if you are working on your matrix essential skill, you will be forced to use matrices, so let's practice that together. First, putting our system into a matrix. So 1, -4. I'll draw the line once, but I'm not going to draw it every time because it's just annoying. -1, 3, 4, -19. So I already have that 1 in the first spot. I now need to work on making this spot a 0. See if you can do row operations to make that happen. Okay, so to make that bottom corner 0, I did row 2 minus 3 row 1. I did it to everything. Now I've got my stair step happening, the 1, the 0. Because this is only 2 variable system, I can just solve this right here. 16y equals -16 is what that says. Divide by 16, y equals -1. Plug it back into the system and find x. If you do that carefully, you should get -5, -1. Finding the inverse if it exists. See if you can find the inverse of this matrix. Okay, so 2 by 2 is the only thing you'll be asked to do by hand. So let's review that formula. I used the formula. You're also welcome to do row operations if that's the way you like to do it. It's going to be 1 over the diagonal AD minus the other diagonal BC. And then times, I'm running out of space, so I'm going to write kind of small, swap the main diagonal and make the other ones opposite. So if you didn't remember that, now it's on the page. See if you can do number 1. So here's my first step. Maybe I'm showing a little bit more than necessary, but check your work and keep going. Pause your video. Okay, carefully doing the denominator, -27, it becomes plus 40, which gives me 1 over 13. Distribute the 1 over 13, and there's my inverse function. When you do it this way, if the inverse doesn't exist, you would get 0 in the denominator, because 1 over 0 does not exist, or is undefined. So if that ever happens, that's how you know the inverse of that matrix does not exist. See if you can do number 2 on your own. Pause your video. Okay, there is my final answer in the corner. I reduced. Negative over a negative becomes positive, and I reduced. So 1 over 21, 5 over 21, 1 over 7, and -2 over 7. Remember, you can also use your graphing calculator to check your work on all these. If it's a test, you're going to be asked to show your work, and or you won't even have a calculator. But if you're just at home practicing, you can use your calculator to make sure you're doing it right. Hope this helps. Hope you guys are doing good.